My talk about 5G tonight is a lot more than 5G. 5G is called the 5th generation of technology, wireless technology. And in order to really understand what we are facing, because to understand that we are sovereign beings is to truly understand sovereign law and the sovereignty of energy, the sovereignty of creation. Yeah? Natural law, when you take natural law to its true nature, natural law is the law of energy. Energy is what makes everything happen in the universe. We know this through physics. As a physicist, now they look at this and they say, you know what, people? None of this is real. This is all energy. It's little packets of energy that form into physical, molecular things. They don't know how it happens, but they know it's a fact that everything is just energy. Right? In the old way, they would call it spirit. They would say everything's spiritual. Yeah, everything's just spirit energy. And everything's alive. Plants, animals, humans, molecules, everything is alive, including the earth, the sun, and the stars. Everything's alive. So in order to really understand what this 5G thing is, wireless technology, it's really important to understand what energy is. Yeah? The cosmos is made out of energy. There's something called the electromagnetic spectrum. Anybody ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know what that is?
What we see, isn't it?
What would you say that is?
Energy.
Yeah, I know what that
It's different aspects of energy. Just like the Creator has different aspects of itself. We are one aspect of Creator. And so the electromagnetic spectrum, they can measure it. They're waves. Yeah? In science, there's two weird things that they don't really understand, but they can measure them. It's called a wave and a particle. Right? That's how light happens. A wave and a particle. At one point, the wave, you did all these really out there scientific experiments, and at one point, if you look at the wave in a certain way with a certain intention, the wave turns into a particle and then manifests itself in a certain way. Scientists call these things atoms that are made up of particles. And atoms are dancing energy. They're dancing energy that dance in the wave, that only appear when our minds think of something. Now, isn't that weird? If you think about it, it's actually pretty weird. Spiritually, in the old way, they knew that they could manifest with their mind. From what's left of the Hawaiian knowledge, they knew how to use their mind on these various different levels to create what they wanted to create. And thought works the same way as the electromagnetic spectrum. When you think you're thinking in your head. And you think it stays in your head. Not true. When you think, you create a pulse of energy. And that pulse of energy goes out into a 360-degree circle, and somebody else who's what we call maybe psychic or telepathic, they can hear your thoughts coming from your head in their head. Okay, this is how it works. Everything's energy. When you have a thought, your spirit energy is thinking through your brain. There's an electrical impulse. That impulse vibrates out on the waves and goes out everywhere. Yeah? So to understand this is to understand the natural law and what's happening to us with technology. The Hopi elders had a prophecy for us at this time, the ones we've been waiting for. And they said at the end of time, this cycle of time, if humans chose technology, it would be the end of everything. Unless, at some point, they choose to go back to the land and live in natural harmonics with the land. And then there would be some who survive to create the new world. And after this strange things that the Hopi seen were coming, the strange energetic shift that was going to happen. They said after that happens, what will be revealed to those who survive will be the true nature of our soul. Now, this is their message. And this message, where they have this prophecy written on stone, was carbon dated to be 10,000 years old. So they've known this was going to happen a long time ago. Yeah? And they gave signs to help us to understand what was coming. And to understand these signs, they said something called technology. If we choose technology. Have you seen any technology around you?
In my pocket.
Do you know how short we have had technology in the scope of how long we've been here?
Depends what kind.
Yeah, I mean from the records, right?
A wheel is technology.
Yeah, electronic technology we'll call it. We'll go there. So let's understand, when they say that 5G has no effect on you, and there's science to prove that, obviously they haven't read the science. They don't understand science. And so they can fool people. This group of people hasn't been fooled completely yet. You know how many people are out there that do? You've seen people driving around in their cars with masks on?
Yes.
And bicycles.
Yeah. So, in this book, there's a great book. It's called The Invisible Rainbow. If you really want to understand what's going on, read that book. He goes back to an understanding that humans had since the 1600s that we were made of electricity. We're made of electricity. And if you want your sovereign power back, you must increase your amperage. You must clear out the blocks of energy and turn your energy field on. That's really what this is all about. Your sovereignty is about your energy. Who you are as a true energetic being. And so the science that's been studied and recorded for the last 400 years in the European way. Again, I'm talking about European way because they're the ones that have created this technology. Yeah? The Hawaiian way, many indigenous cultures, they know the energy way. Yeah? But we've all been tricked, or they've tried to trick us, into understanding that we're not energy beings. We're blobs of skin and bones made out of little cells. That's all we are. And if you can do that, then it's easy to manipulate people and manipulate their minds. Because this isn't really what we are. We're powerful spirit beings. The most powerful spirit beings in the universe, actually. Yeah? So this is what we have to relearn. And once we relearn that, we can take the Aina back to the way in a sacred way. Right? Because it comes from here. And we reconnect to the pulse of the earth. And that's really important, the pulse of the earth. So there was this guy who did all this research. He went around, once they started developing all these instruments to do research with. And he went all around the world because what they discovered was the earth is pulsing. This energy pulse. And they measured it all over the earth, and they understood that the earth, the top of the earth, is the negative pole of a battery-like system. The ionosphere, up there in space, is the positive pole of this energy system. And there's an energy that comes up from the earth. It's an electromagnetic energy. It goes up to the ionosphere. The ionosphere is filled with high-charged electricity. It comes back down and away. It goes into the earth. It goes back up. And he averaged that out. He went all over the world and averaged that out. His name was Schumann. Anybody ever heard of Schumann resonance? Okay. So this is a cavity. It's a closed system. Because when the earth pulses, it creates an energy field. We call that the atmosphere. The atmosphere protects us from ultraviolet radiation. It protects us from cosmic radiation. Protects us from X-ray radiation. Because if any of those radiations on the electromagnetic spectrum came into the earth at higher levels, you know what would happen to us? We dissolve. We dissolve. So the earth creates a shield for us. It's the electromagnetic field. It protects us. We as human beings and all plant life and animal life on the planet thrive on the light spectrum and the electromagnetic spectrum. We thrive on that. We live on that. That happens through the photosynthesis process. The plant, this weird thing out of a seed, it pulls in sunlight, it sucks up minerals from the earth. It needs water. Water is the catalyst. Oxygen and hydrogen catalyzes the seed to produce itself. The seed then grows little leaves and sucks in photon particles from the sun, makes the plant. The animals eat the plant. We eat the plants and the animals. We're made up of light and minerals. That's what we're made of. So the idea in this electromagnetic field, this pulse from the earth is 8 hertz. A hertz is 1 cycle per second. 1 hertz is 1 cycle. This wave goes up and goes down. 1 cycle. Up and down. So all around the world he went and he found this wave going up from the earth, up to the ionosphere, back down in 8 cycles per second. 8 cycles per second. Okay? Human beings have a brain. Our brains are electric. It creates an electromagnetic function from our brain, and we operate from about 1/2 of hertz, which is a delta frequency, up to the higher frequencies of about 25. Now they're up to 40 hertz. When you're thinking really, really hard, you're really super active in your brain, you're around 40 hertz. So your brain is creating 40 cycles per second of energy that's going out like this. Okay? When you go to sleep, you go down towards about 8 cycles is a theta brainwave state, about 8 cycles, right before you go to sleep. When you go to sleep below that, you go into delta. And what happens is you synchronize with the earth pattern. The 8 hertz synchronizes you. It balances your brain, your conscious and subconscious mind, and you get back connected to the earth while you're sleeping. It fixes all the stress you did to the body in the day. You relax, and then you wake up in the morning full of energy. In harmony with the earth. You feel the earth pulsing you, her heartbeat, that pulses into your heartbeat, and you connect to that. Makes sense, right?
Yes.
So under the light spectrum and the electromagnetic spectrum, you have infrared below red, which you can't see. Then you have microwave. Then you have radio waves. That's the whole band, from gamma ray down to radio waves. So gamma radiation, the highest frequency in the electromagnetic spectrum, is what an atomic bomb creates. It creates gamma radiation. Okay, you know what happens when they blow up an atomic bomb? Everything within a certain sphere, what does it do? It turns to dust. Because that energy is so high, it breaks all the atomic bonds, all the molecules of anything it comes in contact with, including buildings, steel, humans, anything. It breaks all the bonds that hold you into the form that you are, and you dissolve. You become little atoms of molecules, and you become dust again. That's the high spectrum. Those don't do too well for us. The radio waves is a very long wave, and we've been using that for quite a while, right? Radio waves. Like if we had a radio and we turned it on here, what will happen? You dial a certain dial, because the FCC has gave FM 95.2. It sold that frequency, that current, that cycle per second to a company. They take the company, they put it on their little antenna. You talk into that. The talking attracts to the wave, and then your talking rides the wave. And then you put on a little machine and dial in 95.2, and you can hear somebody talking really far away, depending on how powerful their transmitter is. Okay? Get that? So this research that goes back into wireless technology goes back into the early 1900s. A lot of this research was being done because they were developing radar. Because in the war game, they started making airplanes and bombs and all kinds of stuff. And there was this race to catch the other guy before he got you. Right? So they started making planes, and planes could come over and bomb people. But if you could find something that would tell you they were coming, you could prepare. Right? It was a really great idea. It was all military technology. And there was one guy at one of these radar ranges, he would stand in front of it and he would start to get hot. So he stepped aside, and one day he was eating his lunch. He said, I'm going to try something. I'm going to take a hot dog. He put a hot dog in a stick and he put it right in front of the transmitter, and it cooked the hot dog. He said, wow, that's super cool. He told the other people about it, and the engineers heard about it. And somebody, some great engineer had this idea. Cooking food. What a good idea. Let's make a radar range. You know what a radar range is? Most of you probably have one. It's called a microwave oven.
Never had.
Right?
Never.
But because it was such a good idea to make money, they put it out and they called it a radar range. Nobody would buy it because they were thinking radar, dangerous, uh-oh. So they did a public PR campaign. They said, they went to all the women and they said, what would work for you to buy this thing? Because it makes your food cook faster. You can go to work now because you don't have to stay in the kitchen so long. What would work? And they called it, let's call it what it is, a microwave. It's a smaller wave. It's a microwave. Right? And so the Navy, once they started doing all this and playing with all this technology, the Navy decided to do some research. And they wanted to find, let's see, we used it, it worked in war, but is it dangerous to biology, living things? So they funded all this research. They did research for 15, 20 years. They came out with a list of things that it does to human beings and plants. Any disease you can think of, you've ever heard of, was on that list. Microwave. High-powered microwave. Because this is all really technical, and I'm not going to go there today. I'm going to explain it. Like I said, you can get the book. You can understand it from a different level. I'm kind of giving you an overview because I don't have that much time, right? So power, the more power, the higher the energy of the wave coming at you, the more it does. Okay? So then they created radio wave. And then radio was really cool because then you could talk to somebody really far away. Right? Like that, right? And what they started to do was develop all kinds of new electrical technology. And this started to create this wave of new corporations that could make this really cool stuff. Yeah? And once they started going wireless, human health was no concern. Kind of like it is now, right? You can't set up a tower for health reasons. Like, why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
How silly. Why don't we just accept what they're doing, right? So all the research that they did, so there was this one guy that hired, his name was Fry, back in the early 60s to study microwave. He came up with that long list, and you know what they said to him? You're fired. No more funding for you. Because who does the science? People who get funding do the science. Because you know how much it costs to buy those really fancy instruments and all the, have a university and all kinds of like wild expensive things to do research. It's super expensive. Could take years. They hire dozens and dozens of scientists at really high pay. It's really expensive. You know who pays for all that? Corporations. Corporations. Okay? So this is something that started to happen. They started to see that they were getting information from scientific research that wouldn't help sell their products. Let's say that. Like if you knew that you could get a heart attack instantly from standing really close to a microwave oven, would you buy one?
No.
I have to think about it, you know. I mean, if I didn't have to stay in the kitchen so long, you know, what's a heart attack? Think about that. Like, it's really bizarre. And it says there right on the microwave oven, if you have one. I've never had one. But I think it says something about, please keep your distance. And by the way, if you have anything electrical on you, like a pacemaker, please don't use this. It will kill you. It will affect your pacemaker because it's electrical. Right? That make sense? So they've been testing all these things from radio, all these different types of things. There's even research coming from Russia that says they can use a specific frequency on the radio band frequency, add some color to it, a laser, a particular type of laser, talk into that frequency, and change the DNA.
Oh, jeez.
Hard science. Hard science. They could actually alter the DNA in salamanders because they love to experiment on animals because they're not killing people. So and rats and little lizards and things. They have cells just like us because everything is just made out of cells that's living, right? So they can test them on animals, and that's what they do a lot. And so the idea of doing this, these carrier waves, they're called carrier waves, radio frequency. First they're doing radio, and then they go to, first they're using radio waves for wireless technology, cell phones. Then they go to microwave. They're concerned, like in the military, remember I told you about the hot dog? Well, I said, if there's no thermal means heat, if there's no thermal effect to a human being, like if we lower the power and just beam them with microwaves, and they don't heat up and burn and cook, then there's no problem. No health problems at all. There's none. Can't be. Although they've found that list, remember that? Yeah. So what they do is they hire scientists to prove that it's safe. They hire them for hundreds of studies, and they make the experiment so there's no conclusive evidence. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
There's no conclusive evidence. What's cancer? There's no conclusive evidence. What's diabetes? There's no conclusive evidence. Go down the line. Alzheimer's. Every disease that you can think of, there's no conclusive evidence. Now these guys are really stupid. Either really stupid because they get lots of money. They get billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to do research, and they can't find the answers. Wow, they must be like, they're either really stupid or they're doing something on purpose. Right?
Yeah.
So they start using this microwave, and they start with the cell phones, and then they increase the technology. So they go from 2G to 3G. We're now in 4G. They've upgraded 4G to 4G Lite. And what that means is there's more power and there are different frequencies. The key to getting those bands of frequencies, like your radio signal for the station, is the FCC. The FCC sells frequency bands. Okay? That's how they do it. So they have a band. So you can create with a machine, you can create 6 gigahertz cycles. 6 gigahertz is 6 billionths of a hertz. Right now, the cell phones that most of us have are in 4G. That's about 900 megahertz. That's 900 million hertz per second.
Oh my goodness.
900 million hertz per second. So what do we thrive on? 8, 12, 15. So imagine that. So there's this harmony in our brain, and all of a sudden there's this thing going. How do you think that would feel to you? It's called irritable. Your brain gets irritable. Okay? It changes your behavior. It changes your chemistry. It actually changes your DNA. It changes the way your brain functions. What they're finding out now is the DNA is like a toroid antenna. It's an antenna, the DNA. It picks up literally cosmic signals, everything from our environment. It picks up energy signals and reacts to those signals. It either opens up the cells in your skin, the DNA does, those tissue, because it acts like an antenna, and it receives those signals, and then those signals are literally absorbed into the tissue. Okay? It might not cook you, but have you ever heard of that story of the frog? If you want to cook a frog, right? Put it in kind of cool water. And if you turn the water up really high, what happens? The frog goes, "Hey, dude, that's too hot," and jumps out. So there was somebody who did maybe some scientist or something, some experimentation. He slowly turned up the water. Slowly. So the frog was going, "Well, that feels good. That's kind of nice and warm. That's cool." Harder and harder and harder until it heated the inside of the core temperature of the frog, and it dies. Kind of like that. Yeah? So this 5G technology is a plan. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Agenda 21.
Yes.
Because it all fits in. Like it all fits in, right? This is a plan that is so sophisticated and so hard to believe. Like the deeper you go into this, your mind goes into what's called cognitive dissonance. Because it's hard to believe that there are human beings, if that's what they are, that are out there trying
I agree with that.
to kill everybody, or control everybody's mind, or manipulate everybody to live according to a robotic model of reality. It's hard for us to believe that. We're just nice people. We go about our business. We try to have fun, try to have families, try to care for the land. We don't think like that. That's why it's difficult to comprehend the level of strategy that they've used to create what they're creating. And they do this many years in advance. And what they do, because they know the plan, the goal, is they pass all these laws first. They make all the laws. They hire everybody in Congress and all the areas of government. They hire them, meaning they get them elected. They choose who they want to get elected. They get them elected, and then when it's time, the corporations write the bills with their lobbyists, with the congressmen and the senators. They write the bills, like the Telecommunications Act of 1996, that states categorically, you can't stop these towers from going up for health concerns. It's a law. Sorry. That's why our common council members
in America.
Yeah, in America, in the corporations, and all around the world, by the way. Yeah? And so what they do is they pass these laws, and then when the time to activate stuff comes up, sorry, nothing you can do, it's in the law already. Just like COVID-19, if you knew what they were doing with COVID-19, if people knew, you know, and you. Again, we would rebel. If you knew your life was at stake, and your family was at stake, and your relatives into the future, their lives were at stake. And I mean seriously at stake.
Yeah.
What would we do? We would do a revolution. Except they control the revolutions, you see. They think of everything. The one thing they can't stop or change is our spirit. They can only manipulate our mind to dull our spirit down and poison us so we can't access our spirit, which is our energy. It's our energy that they're after. They want to make our energy go away. And if you can interfere with the brain, because remember the radio I talked about that you dialed in to receive the signal? This is a cosmic antenna. This is a spiritually cosmic antenna. There are things in your brain, like your pineal gland, that is an antenna to cosmic energy. When Creator speaks through the cosmos, you pick it up, you become in harmony with the earth and the electromagnetic fields of the earth, and you live in harmony, peace, love, kindness, compassion. These are our natural way of being.
Yes.
That's the truth of who we are.
Yes.
Right? So 5G technology goes from, in the electromagnetic spectrum, it goes from 6 gigahertz 6 billion hertz, up to 3 trillion hertz. Okay? Right about in there somewhere at about 95 gigahertz, 95 billion hertz, there's something called the active denial system. Anybody ever heard of that? The active denial system. Nice name. It's a military weapon. It goes on a Humvee. They drive around with it. They beam you with it. It's a microwave at 95 gigahertz. They beam you with it. Your epidermis, the water in your epidermis, because the microwave is absorbed into your tissue because your DNA feels that, opens up the antenna, opens up your cell, it goes in there and cooks the water under your epidermis to 130 degrees instantly. You know what you can do? Nothing but run. So it's a crowd control system. 95 gigahertz. Okay? So the idea that they're using these frequencies as a way so we can download more movies is what's called a PR campaign. It's a PR campaign, public relations.
Yes, campaign.
If they can convince you that this is you have to have this, like you have to have it. Everybody has to have it. In fact, what we're going to do, I just read in the news the other day, the FCC is going to be giving upwards of 40,000 new satellites permission to fly in the sky. And they want them all up in 9 years. 40,000. There's about 8,000 satellites up in space right now, which we are being beamed of right now. These frequencies are coming through and they're beaming us. Okay? About 9,000 of them. Military, secret military stuff, television, direct TV, all of these energies are hitting us all the time, 24/7. And so the FCC sells these bandwidths. Okay, so Verizon's going to buy, or I think AT&T bought 6 gigahertz to 12 gigahertz. They buy it from the FCC, paying a lot of money for it too. And oh, by the way, did I say that many of the commissioners for the FCC used to work for the telecommunications companies? Kind of interesting how that happens. But anyway, so they're selling these bandwidths, right? And once they buy the bandwidth, they put up their computers or their towers, they use that frequency, and they give you the fastest downloads you can imagine, instantaneous downloads. But what that's doing to the human body is that the symptomology is just any symptom you can imagine. Any symptom, headache, PMS, anything can be created by these things. The next level of that, this magic, because let me tell you something. If you've never heard this before, this is black magic. This is the highest black magic you can imagine. Because they understand how to use technology to manipulate reality, including your mind. So from that level, they can put a carrier wave. A carrier wave creates a whole different harmonic in that specific frequency, and they can talk onto that like they do in the radio wave, and they can send that into your brain, and you've never known you've even got it, and it can make you want to go shoot somebody. Actually. I've actually talked personally to somebody who knew a guy who developed technology where they could track you with your DNA. Because your DNA is a very specific frequency resonance that only you have. And they can measure that DNA. Do you know why they're taking all these swabs, all these tests? You know what they're looking for? Do you think they're looking for COVID-19? They're looking for your DNA, folks. They want to catalog everybody's DNA, because the system that they have coming up with 5G, it's a system. It's not a cell phone thing. It's a system. The Internet of Things. It's so that everything can be tracked through artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence becomes the controlling system, and the rich and the wealthy people go into their islands and they have all kinds of fun. Ask Jerry Epstein. Okay? So the idea of this is to help you understand that no matter what they say in the news, that they've proven that this is safe, they do that to confuse you. Because who am I to say that this stuff is doing this stuff? These are experts. They went to Yale. They went to Harvard. They've been doing this for 40 years. They really know their stuff. And they did research for 10 years with the best scientists in the whole world at the biggest universities in the best of the best. And all the science says it's safe. Why should you listen to me? It creates doubt and confusion. Because this rabbit hole goes so deep. I read an article not too long ago that said they have very good data, science, that the Earth started heating up 160 years ago from its normal measurements. 160 years ago, all of a sudden it went zoop, and then it went zoom. And in this book, it's very interesting. You know when the first electrical lines were hung on planet Earth? 160 years ago, the telegraph lines went up in the city of London. Very soon after that, electricity took off. People started to get sick all over the place from electrical lines. Now this isn't wireless, this is wired. From electrical lines, and they had hundreds of electrical lines running down the streets in the big cities. The telegraphs. Okay? And people started getting all these weird sicknesses. They called it neuralgia, which is still a term they use today. Okay? And so once they did that, the Earth is heating up. Has anybody heard of global warming? Anybody? And of course the scientists are telling us it's not from pollutants, right? That's not true. Well, let me just ask a question. What's it from? We don't know. Okay? But this is what happens with electricity. You take electricity, all these strange frequencies, and the control of electricity, and by the way, scientists do not know what electricity is, because it's spiritual energy. Captured. And like a laser captures light, it takes light, which is all these little particles going like this, and it makes them coherent. It focuses the light. That's a laser. A laser can cut right through that metal. Okay? So electricity, once they started putting electricity, what they discovered is electricity has to be grounded. Has to be grounded. You have to put it in the ground. What that does is it starts disrupting the Earth's natural energy. Okay? So the idea that they're using microwaves, this 5G system, for the satellites alone, just yesterday I read this, they have to put up 1 million new towers just in the United States. That's for the satellites. That's not the ground wireless communication systems. Okay? Now, again, here's a little science, right? They're heating up the atmosphere. They're playing with the magnetic field lines of the Earth. Because again, the Earth, when it creates a magnetic field, it creates lines of energy. What they know in science is every migratory animal rides these lines. It connects to the lines with their pineal gland, because there's magnetite, a magnetized mineral in their pineal gland that connects to the lines of energy, and they go directly back to where they're supposed to be. They don't need GPS. They don't need any compasses. They don't need anything. It's all wired inside, just like us. Has anybody felt confused lately? They're beaming the whole atmosphere. What this is doing is it's interrupting all the magnetic fluxes of energy on the planet. Just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe, scientists discovered that there were areas in the magnetic field that are collapsing. They're collapsing. And it lets in more ultraviolet energy from the sun. And the magnetic field, the north and pole are going like this on the planet. Everything is going wacky, right? So this is how this ties into the prophecy. Remember I talked about the prophecy in the beginning, if we choose technology. If we choose technology, which it looks like humans have done, it will disrupt the magnetic field of the planet so badly that the field will collapse and we will be out of
Pole shift.
Orientation.
It's pole shift.
not just orientation, the earth will be destroyed. Because I want you to understand one thing about oil. Oil is a pressurized system inside the earth that lubricates the tectonic plates as we're moving through space. The planet breathes, it expands and contracts, and the oil moves through the system in order to lubricate those plates. So as we're moving in space, the earth doesn't have to shake, rattle, and roll so much. So you know what happens in the joint, in your knee, you have this thing called synovial fluid. It's a lubricant for your knee, so it can do this. You know what happens if that goes away? Like that, right? So I would say, my time's about up here, so what I would say, in the prophecies, they talk about the end times. We're all in that. We're the ones we've been waiting for to go back to the earth. To get back into natural law, because this is coming, folks. It's coming big time. And there's no way to stop it just from 5G coming here. We want to stop it from coming here because we don't want to be manipulated in our brain and in our health as much as possible. But it's really important that we understand the system is collapsing. And these kinds of movements are going to be the ones that survive into the future because we have to get back to the earth. In the old way, the seers, the people who could see energy and feel energy, the shamans, the medicine people, the kahunas, they could feel the energy and guide the people to where they needed to be safe. It's time to make sure you are tuned in. Because this isn't going away. There was research in this book that they did for influenza. Anybody ever heard of that? It's been around a long time, right? There was some very, very comprehensive research that found influenza came from the sunspot cycles of energy. As the energy waxed and waned, these cycles would come specifically with that energy. And what they found was what they thought was the influenza virus is no such thing. There's no such thing as contagion. We're energy beings. We're picking up energies and we're responding to energy. And when that happens, when we are stressed, as Jack will talk about in the next talk, when we are stressed, we create things that look like viruses. They're called now exosomes. We create those in the body when the body is stressed. So if I take microwave and I beam all your little cells and all the little cells go bzzz, and they start producing these little virus-like things. Does that sound familiar? Anybody? This is what's happening. So when you hear what Jack has to say, understand that this is such deeply proven science. There is no such thing as a virus you can catch from somebody else. And you just have to understand how it all works to get it. So you can't be confused. You can't be denied for the truth of what's happening here. The energy that they put in the air, in satellites, all the stuff you can't see. They're beaming us because you know why? They know what they're doing. They do all these tests to understand exactly to get the results that they want. That's why you're going to see the second wave. You know the guy Fauci, he said, absolutely second wave, absolutely it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen because we're going to dial it in. We're going to turn the frequency up when we want to. And then everybody's going to start dying and everybody's going to say, vaccine, get my vaccine. I need some nanoparticles. I want to be trapped so I can be saved. This is what's coming. And our protection is our soul sovereignty. Yeah? You've got to get your field back online. This is really serious, folks. The whole system's going away. They're on their move. They want to create this control mechanism through the 5G network system. It's not going to happen because the Earth is not going to allow it to happen. So what survives after the Earth does her little dance to get rid of the viruses that are interfering with her energy body is going to be up to us. It's going to be up to us. Yeah?
Yeah.